Could you explain for us, what do you see as the main value of a political declaration such as the New York Declaration? And does it even have any power to make governments do more for refugees?
Well, the New York Declaration on Refugees and Migrants is once in a lifetime chance. If you go back to 1948, when the Universal Declaration on Human Rights was adopted as a declaration, a little bit like a political declaration like the New York one, at the beginning people thought, well, this is just an aspirational document, it doesn't have much value. And what it did, it revolutionized human rights. And I think we hope that the New York Declaration on Refugees and Migrants will do exactly the same, that it will actually revolutionize the way that the international community engages with refugees.
The New York Declaration, of course, included an annex which set out this idea of a comprehensive refugee response framework. What's the main difference between this new framework and what UNHCR has been doing already in any refugee situation?
It is true that the comprehensive refugee response framework contains a lot of practices that we have been involved in for decades. But there are some new things in there as well. For instance, the focus on refugees and host communities, the fact that the development actors have to come in much earlier, the fact that international financial institutions have to come in much earlier, the fact that it's not just about a piecemeal approach to health, education, or host community support, but that it actually requires a comprehensive approach. We have a lot of practices from the past. The REFCA process in Central America, for example, the response to former Yugoslavia, or even the response to the Syria crisis. What we have learned from these practices from the past is sometimes the support has been too late and too little, and not predictable enough. So what this comprehensive refugee response changes, that it's a predictable framework, that it commits the international community to actually doing something, and that it is there to be done immediately, predictably, and in a much more equitable manner.
So how might an average refugee family, if that family would be in Uganda or Ecuador or Lebanon, Pakistan or Ethiopia, any country which could benefit from this new framework, what would it mean to a family?
Only 50% of refugee children go to primary school, only about a third to secondary school, with huge dropout rates for girls in particular. Only 1% of refugees have access to tertiary education. So we hope, and this is well below the average for nationals in any country in the world, so we hope that through this declaration, through more partnerships, we have more engagement on education, for example, that there will be a real difference, and that these statistics will actually grow in favor of refugees, so that there are more children that can have access to both primary and secondary education, that there are more adolescents and young refugees who can have access to a tertiary education at universities. I think also on the health side, we really hope that it doesn't take an incredible amount of parallel systems, that we manage to do much more and much earlier on with boosting the capacity of local providers in order for refugees' health needs to be met. The same on employment, that it opens up employment possibilities both for host communities but also for refugees. So there will be very concrete benefits if it doesn't just remain paper, but it's actually implemented in practice.
And who will be UNHCR's key partners in developing the new framework?
First and foremost, it's member states. We have some good examples. Uganda is one, where Uganda, for example, provides plots of lands to refugees who have just fled from South Sudan, over 100,000. They include them in their national development program, so member states are key, and they're good examples for that. We also clearly need the civil society. We need civil society actors. In fact, the novelty of the New York Declaration, it talks about a whole of society approach in order to respond to refugee issues and to the needs of refugees. And that's great because it actually reflects reality. It's the host communities that often provide the first support. They need to be supported. It is the local authorities, it's the mayors, it's of cities that require the support that they need. It is the local civil society organizations, the local institutions that are particularly confronted, and they need support. And it's clear that it's apart from the member states, from the international NGOs, from international organizations. Our key partners is the World Bank, it is UNICEF, it's WFP, it's all the UN actors that are working tirelessly with us and together with us on refugee issues. So they will be very, very key.
And what are the next steps for UNHCR in pulling all of this into practice?
We need to very quickly identify a couple of situations where indeed we can see how the comprehensive refugee response works and how it can make a difference. We are currently looking at a number of country situations. The ones that come to mind is, for instance, the situation of the current influx of South Sudanese into different countries. We will have to see in each and every area of our work what it is that the New York Declaration changes for us in terms of engagement with member states as well as with partners and refugees themselves.